Breaking tonight, emergency at the border and treachery in the swamp. As President Trump gets ready to fight for his border wall, just minutes ago, disgraced former FBI official Andrew McCabe confirms the deep state plot to overturn the 2016 election with an administrative coup. Evening, everyone, and welcome to The Next Revolution. I'm Steve Hilton, and this is the home of positive populism, pro-worker, pro-family, pro-community. With me live in Los Angeles tonight, Jason Chaffetz, Teslin Figueroa, Chris Buskirk. We'll debate the president's national emergency declaration, the border security funding bill, as well as those shocking revelations from Andrew McCabe. Also tonight, something I have been wanting to do for a very long time. Stay tuned for an epic takedown of the Never Trumpers. I have a feeling you will enjoy it. But first, here's my big takeaway from the events of the last few days. President Trump needs populist allies. What we're seeing now are the consequences of the original sin of the Trump administration, the fateful decision soon after the election to hand the reins of policy making and policy planning to the establishment Republicans in Congress. Remember what they told us?
We're working on the same plan. What I did during the transition with my counterpart in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is we put together a 200-day plan for the president. Inside the 200-day window is the regulatory reforms we talked about. It's the repeal and replace Obamacare. It's the budget. It's the rebuilding of our military. It's tax reform. Those are the things that we're working on, and infrastructure. Those are the things we're working on.
Oh, and infrastructure, all in 200 days. What a joke. They never had a clue. They didn't understand the populist revolt that put Donald Trump in the White House. They took 2016 as a mandate for business as usual when, in fact, people voted for change. Yes, there are overlaps between establishment Republicans and conservative populists on judges, on taxes, on regulations. But on trade, for all of his first year, President Trump was blocked by his own White House. On America's endless wars, he was blocked by his own cabinet. And on immigration, he was and still is blocked by Congress. What's the lesson? It's not enough to elect a populist president. We need populists in Congress and throughout the administration. Here's something practical you can do. Yes, you. If you're frustrated with the establishment Republicans in Congress, don't just rage against them. Run against them. Start now. Start running. Even if it's for local or state office, that is a great stepping stone. If it's not you, nominate someone you think can do it. But one way or another, help give President Trump the populist allies he needs. Here to discuss, former Utah Congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, editor and publisher of American Greatness, Chris Buskirk, and former Bernie Sanders national staffer and founder of the Teslin Figueroa communications group, Teslin Figueroa. All right, Jason, let me start with you because you, of all people around the table, really understand the kind of intricacies of this whole process around funding for the border wall, the national emergency. There's so much to say, but just give us your take on where we are right now.
I'm glad the president is finally standing up to do something about the border and illegal immigration. In my lifetime, I haven't seen anybody who's as laser focused on that. The problem is, as you say, the establishment Republicans don't really want to solve this. They have not served the president well. They did not put a good bill in front of the president. I understand why he signed it. I think there was a better, smarter way to do it. But nevertheless, the president needs backup and support to truly solve the illegal immigration problem.
But Chris, a lot of conservatives have pushed back and said, well, look, they actually quite like the emergency declaration, at least it shows he's fighting, but he shouldn't have signed that bill because actually it prevents him, the small print, the fine print says it prevents him from doing the things that they want to see happen.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's actually, the more people read this bill, the worse it gets. And I mean, this was a classic example of one of these bills where you have to read the bill, or you have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. You know, there's one thing that people don't realize, and that nobody in the West Wing seemed to tell the president, which is that Section 224 of this bill provides for what is basically a de facto amnesty for anybody who will currently or potentially could house an unaccompanied minor, which would be everybody because there's no criteria for it. So you just say, yeah, okay, fine, I could do that. And then not that person and nobody who lives in the household. That's in the language of the bill. And so what President Trump did is he promised a wall. He actually signed a massive amnesty.
Do you agree with that?
In large part, I really do. The president would have been better served to actually take the continuing resolution from last year and on a page and a half, just go ahead and say, all right, let's do what we did last time and then transfer funds and build the wall. He would have had tens of billions of dollars more to do it. Right. Instead, you have 1,600 pages that put limitations on the president. that nobody fully understood because nobody could possibly have read it. But it was chock full of limitations to slow the president down.
I'll get to you in a second, Tesla. I want to get Jason on the specifics because you've been there. One argument I've heard is that while it may be true what Chris says, and you seem to agree in terms of the restrictions, this is just up till September, and that all of that lapses in September, so it's not the end of the world.
They'll have to have additional clarifying language because there will be a food fight, and more than a food fight, a legal fight, as to whether or not that continues on in perpetuity. Now, we've heard Steve Scalise say, oh, no, this only happens for a short amount of time, but it shouldn't happen for any amount of time. And so I recognize that the president got just over $1 billion to build the wall, but he could have gotten tens of billions of dollars by having the flexibility that Barack Obama and other presidents have had by transferring money between accounts without any additional appropriations.
Tesla, when you look at all this and the way that this fight over the wall is just dominating politics, the Democrats came in saying, we're going to be all about health care and all this and reform, tackling corruption, and okay, we may have a big sort of laugh about that given how they're funded, but anyway, that was the message. We're going to do all these positive things. Instead, it's just all about this one issue that President Trump chose to put there. Do you think that in some senses the Democrats have walked into a political trap?
Yeah, well, they made it all about DACA. Last year it was all about DACA, which is why a lot of Democrats like myself moved to the Independent Party, because you're not focusing on, actual citizens in this country and what's going on the other side of the wall. And so that's where the frustration is. And I think that's where the right and the left can agree. We disagree or have polar opposite opinions as we see, we have these conversations. But I think people overall, they want someone to deliver on their campaign promises. I did not vote for President Trump. I was not a President Trump supporter, but I completely understand that if he promised people the wall, then people kind of want to expect to see the wall. The same way with Barack Obama. I expected things from Barack Obama, and his Congress at that time did not support him as well. So my thing that I'm having is, my problem is, I guess people are either unfamiliar because now they're paying attention. Every president has asserted some type of executive order. This is nothing new. This is nothing new under the sun, but because President Trump is doing it and because it is such a hot, controversial issue, that's why now it's such a big deal to have a president.
I think you put it very well about people's expectations. Last word, Jason, just looking forward. I mean, where can we be optimistic? It seems to me that in the sort of list of pots of money that the president and his team are pointing to, there's some money there, the drug enforcement and the Treasury receipts or whatever it is, that actually he could spend right now and start making some progress.
The president will make progress, but there were limitations in this bill on the number of ICE officers they could hire, limitations on the number of Border Patrol agents that they could hire. I believe the president promised.
Okay, so what's the answer then? What should he be thinking about positively?
The president has to propose a budget in February, and the Congress is supposed to pass a budget over the summer so that is in place starting at the end of September. That is the hope. But again, divided government, it's going to be very difficult to get there. But the president is on the right side of the issue, and he will continue to pound on it. And America, I think, is on his side. I really do.
Yeah, and let's just come back to, I want to leave you with the point that I made at the beginning, which is in the end, he can't do it on his own. You've got to have more populist allies if that's what you want to see, if that's the change you want to see. Okay. Now, here is something positive and practical for you that gets far too little coverage in the media. President Trump put the American worker right at the heart of his economic agenda. And one of the most important things his administration is doing could be the workforce development effort being led by Ivanka Trump. The devastation to jobs, families and communities that globalization and new technology have already caused may be nothing compared to what's just around the corner with artificial intelligence and other forms of automation. The only serious response is to help workers get the skills they need to be valuable in this new economy. For years, government wasted billions of dollars on top-down training programs that have totally failed. The right answer is exactly what Ivanka Trump is doing, urging the private sector to invest in training. She's already persuaded American business to pledge 6.5 million skills training opportunities. And this week, along with Wilbur Ross, she announced the creation of the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board to take this vital work to the next level. Members of the board include the presidents and CEOs of 25 major American companies, including Apple, Lockheed Martin, and Walmart. Positive, practical, and great news for American workers. All right, coming up, our viewers, demanded it. Charlie Kirk is back to finish his thoughts on how President Trump is helping African Americans. Don't go away.
Discussion of the 25th Amendment was simply Rod raised the issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort. But to be fair, it was an unbelievably stressful time. I can't even describe for you how many things must have been coursing through the Deputy Attorney General's mind at that point. So it was really something that he kind of threw out in a very frenzied, chaotic conversation about where we were and what we needed to do next.
Frenzied and chaotic. Isn't that what these deep state people, how they talk about the White House? Unbelievable. There you saw Andrew McCabe just tonight. I mean, I don't know where to start with this, but Tesla, I'm going to start with you. Look, just to follow up on what you were saying earlier, like if people vote for President Trump, then the people who should be able to get rid of him are the voters who put him there, not the bunch of bureaucrats.
Well, he just threw it out and said it was just a casual conversation. So now we're going to get a chance to really see what that conversation
casual
was
about saying we're going to overturn an election
That's
result.
right. I'm looking forward to seeing how far you guys are going to push this to see if we're actually going to see what that conversation was about and make sure it's live so I can bring popcorn
I
and
wish
tea.
it was all live. But what's comical is if that continues on, Scott Pelley asked him, well, what was the context in which this discussion came up? And McCabe says, oh, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I mean, this is a guy who a year ago, the Inspector General put out a 39-page report essentially highlighting, detailing 4 times that he lied to federal authorities, 3 times while under oath. I don't believe a word that this guy says. And then he goes on to recount a secondhand conversation, which I am telling you, mark my words here today, Steve. That is classified information. You cannot share it publicly, even if it's secondhand information. He knows this, and he should be prosecuted for this. This guy, Mr. McCabe, should be prosecuted for sharing classified information.
Just be specific, which bit?
When he goes on and he describes an encounter in which the president was briefed on intelligence regarding North Korea. You cannot do that. You cannot go on national television under your own volition and share classified information. But again, that's probably why they didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton. You can't do that.
But this is the thing. They accused the president of doing that kind of thing the whole time. Chris, I want you to respond to something. There's another thing he said, which is just really staggering when you think about the mindset of these people and what their priorities are. There's a new clip from tonight. Let's have a look.
We got the special counsel and probably the best special counsel we possibly could have hoped for in charge of an investigation that I think everyone would admit is one of the most important efforts underway right now.
One of the most important efforts underway. Like, he thinks that that's the most important. You know, like real people honestly just want this whole thing to be over, and he thinks it's the most important thing.
It's important to him because he staked his career on it. The FBI and the DOJ, people like Rod Rosenstein, McCabe, Strzok, Page, all of these people, they have staked their entire lives on trying to remove the duly elected president from office using the secret police, the FBI, in order to do Hillary Clinton's dirty work. And everything since then, including the Mueller investigation, I think is basically a cover-up for what they were doing during the campaign, which was trying to use the dossier, the Hillary Clinton Fusion GPS dossier, as a tool to keep Donald Trump from winning. Yeah. And now they're trying to cover it up by saying, you know, hold on a second, this was a real crime, and now we've got to prove it because that'll clear us from what we were doing, which was being the henchman for the Clinton campaign.
I mean, I just can't believe how everyone, like, used the word casual earlier about how they were doing this plot. But on the other hand, why is everyone on the left so casual about this whole thing? I mean, this is really frightening. I mean, if this was happening in another country, you would be, or, you know, it's the kind of thing that used to happen in places that we wouldn't even consider to be democratic. And yet, civil liberties people, everyone's fine with it because it's Trump. They hate Trump.
And it's campaign season. I mean, let's just be honest about it. It's not really about people standing on what's right or what's wrong. It's about campaign season. So everything will be thrown, the kitchen sink will be thrown towards Trump's way between now and 2020. And then Democrats will have an opportunity to see if they're able to galvanize their base. And then we'll start all over again. So it's unfortunate. You know, it seems like no logic on either side, from my opinion, being independent in the middle.
But I don't understand what's going to. I mean, you say he should be prosecuted, whatever. For the last couple of years, you've had so many examples of that. He should be prosecuted. She should be investigated. You know, I've said we should have the only way people will feel that fairness has been done if you have an equivalent process looking into everything that happened from the deep state and Clinton and so on. There doesn't seem to be any sign that will happen.
And I totally agree that should happen. But remember, Mueller prosecuted Papadopoulos, Cohen, Flynn, Manafort for what? Lying to Congress. Then the Inspector General comes along, looks at McCabe, says that he lied 4 times, 3 times under oath, a 39-page report, lots of evidence, and yet here we are a year later, and they're not doing anything to prosecute the deep state, which is this guy, Mr. McCabe.
You remember a couple of months ago when we had this huge FBI SWAT team that kicked in Roger Stone's door? I want to know when the FBI is going to kick in Andrew McCabe's door, because he's done exactly the same thing. He's lied under oath. This is what the Inspector General told us, and yet turnabout doesn't seem to be fair play. We have 2 different sets of rules here, and it's about time that stops.
And there was this interview tonight on 60 Minutes. There's not one bit of evidence that he could point to say that there was this so-called collusion. There was no precursor to even start the investigation on Donald Trump.
Right. Well, look,
you would think they would unveil it on 60 Minutes. No.
This is why the populist revolution must continue, because, it's not, I like I said at the beginning, it's not enough just to have the president. I mean, you've got this huge weight of the establishment that is against anyone who tries to disrupt it. All right, new topic. Amazon's decision this week to pull out of a deal with New York over its second headquarters has prompted a ton of comment about attitudes to business and capitalism in America. Much of the commentary was superficial and wrong, so let me clear things up. I'm all for mayors and governors trying to attract investment and jobs, but they should do it in a pro-enterprise way, improving the business climate in their cities and states by cutting taxes and regulations and investing in infrastructure and local skills. But that is not what happens in America today. Instead, local governments bribe wealthy corporations with taxpayer money and backroom deals. That's not the free market. That's not capitalism. That is the swamp. The New York Amazon deal was swampier than most. Democrats, Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio, teamed up with anti-Trump activist and Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos and his Democrat sidekick, former Obama press secretary Jay Carney, to extort billions of dollars in tax breaks. But the real issue with Amazon is the concentration of power in its hands. Capitalism and free markets only work fairly when there's vigorous competition. Amazon is being allowed to crush competition. The Trump administration should take them on, make tough antitrust policy a real priority. Start by breaking up big tech, including Amazon. Of all places, India has shown the way. It is blocking Amazon from unfairly selling its own products on its platform. Good for them. And we will be campaigning for the Trump administration to do exactly the same here. That is positive populism. All right, coming up, my takedown of the Never Trump Republicans. I cannot wait. And we have an exciting announcement for you on March the 24th in New York. We'll be doing an audience question and answer show with some great special guests. If you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, we want you to be part of our debate. For tickets, email us at hiltonaudience@foxnews.com. A New York Times op-ed caught my eye last week because it perfectly captured the prejudice and hate of the Never Trump Republicans. Quote, chaos is consuming the Trump administration. Scandals and corruption besiege the president on every side. The authors speculate with relish about, quote, the discovery of clear criminality by the president or those closest to him, an economic recession, the prospect that he will lead his party to comprehensive defeat in 2020. If some combination of criminality, incompetence, or crisis moves the center-right against the president, his end could come quickly. These are Republicans, remember. Okay, I know it's just the usual unhinged never-Trump rhetoric, but something about it got me more annoyed than usual. These people dress themselves up as intellectually and morally superior, but in reality, all they care about is style, not substance. For example, David Frum constantly pushes the wild conspiracy theory that Vladimir Putin is somehow blackmailing President Trump.
Donald Trump consistently behaves in ways consistent with President Putin having a hold over him.
But hang on a second, consider the substance. David Frum was a speechwriter for President Bush who promised to end the, quote, dead ideological rivalry between the US and Russia and said he found Putin very straightforward and trustworthy. Relations between the US and Russia were much closer under Bush, who did practically nothing when Russia walked into Georgia, in action that even some of Bush's aides regret. Meanwhile, on the substance, it's Trump who armed Ukraine to fight against Russia-backed separatists. It's Trump who sanctioned Russia over Syria's use of chemical weapons. And it's Trump who's trying to stop the construction of a gas pipeline so European countries aren't reliant on Russia for their energy. Those foreign policy geniuses, the never-Trumpers, can't take the fact that President Trump is actually succeeding where they failed. Here's Bill Kristol.
The president is not just out of control, the presidency is out of control, and that's scary.
Out of control, excuse me? You could use exactly those words to describe the Iraq war, which Crystal told us would literally last 2 months, not 8 years.
This is going to be a 2-month war, not a
Park Hill.
year war.
It's going to be 2 months.
Well, it was right that it wasn't 8, it was 18. According to the Brown University Cost of Wars project, the combined cost of America's post-9/11 wars has reached almost $6 trillion. Another study found that about 500,000 people died in Iraq as a result of war-related causes between 2003 and 2011. So, never Trumper Bill Kristol defends all of that, but condemns President Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out of Syria. The obsession with style over substance is just as clear when these people talk about the economy. Former Congressman and militant never-Trumper Ron Paul wrote that Trump's economic miracle is an illusion. It's not an illusion to working Americans, you out-of-touch idiot. They're seeing the substantive benefits of 5 million jobs added, low inflation, unemployment at a 50-year low, wages rising for the first time in decades, and GDP growth topping 3% after all the experts said that would never happen again. The Trump boom is not some kind of cosmic coincidence. It's the result of having a pro-enterprise, pro-worker president in the White House, driving his team and Congress to implement the most pro-growth policy agenda anyone can remember. But according to the Never-Trumpers, the president is some kind of clueless booby. Just listen to the condescending contempt of snooty George Will.
He feels out of his depth in every situation he's in. He doesn't understand the vocabulary of American government. He doesn't understand the conversations that are going on around him. It's like a 12-year-old in a room with people who specialize in quantum mechanics. He just is lost at all times.
No, George Will, you've just lost the argument, which is why you resort to these personal insults. The Bush administration, which you frequently praised, lost over 4 million manufacturing jobs. Meanwhile, under President Trump, the number of manufacturing jobs has risen at the fastest pace for a quarter century. But the Never-Trumpers aren't interested in facts. All they care about is the chance to do some self-righteous moral preening. Here's Nicole Wallace on the president's tweets.
These are bold-faced lies.
Ironic that she, of all people, would call Trump a liar, seeing as she was communications director for the White House that took America to war on a lie. And here's what she said about the president on Martin Luther King Day just last month.
He is, in his heart, he would appear to be a racist.
In 2005, when Nicole Wallace worked for the White House, African Americans made up almost 40% of the federal prison population, and the black unemployment rate consistently hovered at around 10%. President Trump, by contrast, was instrumental in the passage of the First Step Act, which reforms a criminal justice system that disproportionately hurts black families and has seen the black unemployment rate fall to a record low of 5.9%. Yeah, but he's still a racist. Of course, that's the Never-Trumper's favorite insult. Ana Navarro endlessly calls the president a racist over the border wall, which she, of course, is dead against.
I keep wondering just how long he's going to be able to play this same song and this same record. How long can he go back to the wall?
Okay.
I think he thinks it's a winning strategy for him. I don't think it is.
Even if I were to grant you that, okay, the point is the illegal alien crime rate.
Well, she's dead against the wall now. Anyway, in 2008, on the other hand, when she was national co-chair of the Hispanic Advisory Council for John McCain, well, I guess a John McCain border wall is racist, just a Trump one. Glad. On immigration, just as on almost every other issue, President Trump is in fact dealing with the decades-long policy failures of the Never-Trump Republican establishment. On the facts, they should be praising him. But these snobby elitists don't care about substance. For them, it's all about style. They hate Trump because of his hair. They'd hate him because he likes McDonald's. They hate him because he'd rather watch TV than ask them to the White House for intellectual salon dinners like Obama used to. With pompous self-regard, they see themselves as the guardians of true conservatism against the assault from the barbarian Trump.
He is destroying the Republican Party for years to come.
No, Joe, it's not Trump destroying the Republican Party. It was you and your establishment friends. It wasn't Trump who lost control of America's borders, unleashing an explosion of low-wage immigration that devastated American workers, families, and communities. It was Reagan. It wasn't Trump who pushed NAFTA, sending millions of jobs overseas. It was Bush. It wasn't Trump who crashed the economy, destroying economic security for all but the rich. It was another Bush. It wasn't Trump who bailed out the bankers, screwed the workers, sucked up to China, failed on North Korea, and killed off faith in the American dream. It was Republicans and Democrats in Congress and the White House, the decadent, incompetent establishment that the American people are finally calling out for their failure. Of course it's true that President Trump makes mistakes, says and does things worthy of condemnation. But this non-stop barrage of hate from the never-Trumpers, I'd take it more seriously if we could just see from them 1 ounce of self-awareness, of humility, of contrition for their own role in creating the mess that the American people sent Donald Trump to clear up. Well, I'm very glad I got that off my chest. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I would love to know what you think. Tell us at Steve Hilton X and at NextRevFNC. Coming up, Jason, Tezin and Chris are back with their take on the Never-Trumpers. Don't go away. Back, everyone. I've just told our guests here about the Cory Booker clip that we're going to show you at the end of the show, and it caused a lot of merriment around the table. That's just all I'm saying, so stay with us for that. All right, you just heard my take on the Never-Trumpers. Let's see what everyone else has to say. Jason, you go first.
America, you got to listen to the American people. They're always right. And you got to learn that. And a lot of people in my party, the Republican Party, would do well to fully digest. You would think after years they would have digested this, understand they wanted a disruptive, unconventional president because they did not like the direction of Washington, D.C. and the country. That's what Donald Trump has delivered on, and it's delivering results for the American people. And you're right, sometimes you don't like this tweet or you don't like that, but the president is delivering results. And I love what he's doing.
And Chris, this is the point I made at the end, which is that they never actually, I take their criticisms more seriously if they said, yeah, you know what, we did let working people down. That's fair enough. That's why they voted for it. But you never hear anything like that.
You never hear about it. I wrote a book about this, as you know, 2 years ago, which is what I called Conservatism Inc., how they missed the 2016 election, what they needed to learn. And not a single one has learned. I mean, it is just like this exercise in ego. I think people would accept it if the people at National Review who published the Against Trump issue 3 years ago, this past month, or Bill Kristol, if they said, you know what, we got it wrong. We don't love everything about Trump, but he's doing this right, he's doing that right, and we can get behind these policies because this is what we've been promising you for all these years. This is what we've been raising money on for all these years. Yeah. But they don't do it. Instead, they double down and they keep digging the hole deeper. And I just get this sense that they are intoxicated by the sense of their own moral superiority, and that's really the business they're in. Politics is just it just is the milieu in which they work. They don't really care about the outcomes. They just want to make sure that they're at the forefront, and everybody else be damned.
I know, and Tesla, I find myself just reacting much more negatively to the Never-Trumpers in the Republican Party than the Democrats. At least with the Democrats, it's like an honest disagreement. Of course, they're going to not like Trump, but they didn't like Bush. They don't like Romney. That's just. But the hypocrisy of some of these people.
Right. Well, this is a product of what the Democrats did as well. I published a piece today so that all conservatives and conservatives and liberals can know that the reason why we're dealing with everything today right now with Donald Trump is because Democrats have also failed as well. I talked about this in 2014 before Hillary Clinton ran, before Donald Trump ran, before Senator Sanders ran. There was also a need for disruption on the left, which is why I joined the Senator Sanders campaign. Not because I'm a socialist, but because there needed to have a disruption on the left. We'll see in 2020 if he disrupts again or if he'll play nice in the sandbox, but that's happening on the left side as well. So anytime you go against the establishment, anytime you go against doing the opposite of what they tell you to do, this is the result that we see. So it's not just never Trumpers, it's never establishment, people that really have an issue with the establishment.
It's really true.
And look, the establishment has driven us now to $22 trillion in debt.
And rising.
We spend about $890 million a day in interest on our national debt. You don't get anything for that. And so that's what the conventional Washington has brought us to.
The same people, these conservatives, who sort of, go on about Trump being kind of fiscally incontinent and the tax bill and whatever. It's amazing.
this latest bill that they put before the president can only sign what they put in front of him, is tens of billions of dollars more than it was just in December.
Okay.
I mean, the numbers are stuck.
Quick last question for you, Jason, which is, I get this very strong sense from all that crowd that they're just kind of waiting for Trump to somehow this sort of nightmare will be over, and then, we can have our party back. The establishment can sort of take over the GOP again. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't. Look, when Donald Trump, it's a stream of consciousness. He just calls it out and does it the way he does. The latest press conference that he gave earlier this week, there was no teleprompter. That was President Trump just showing you and talking to you the way he sees it. And that is so refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, do you see them coming back?
No, but you're right about that. That is the hope. They're just hoping, okay, well, look, this storm blew into town and it's going to blow out again, and it's the same old thing. He's going to come, he's going to go. That's the way these people think about all the electeds, but we'll still be here because we're the ones who really run the country. And that's why I was really encouraged by what you said earlier in the show, where it's up to people, run for office.
Yes.
I would also encourage people, Republicans, take back the RNC. The RNC is still run by the Ryan Priebus crowd. Go out and run for precinct committeemen. There's thousands of those positions that are open. Do something.
Democrats, too, need to do something.
Yeah, but it does feel like great. I mean, thank you for reinforcing that. I think it's really important. This is the people power. That is at the heart of populism. So if we want this to continue, got to get involved. All right, coming up, we got a ton of feedback from last week's discussion on race in America. And a big theme was, you should have given Charlie Kirk more time. So we did. Charlie is here. There he is. Coming up next. Don't go away.